Welcome to day 247 of The New Way. Let's continue our discussion on end times. I'll reread Matthew 24:15 through 21. So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetop go down to take anything out of the house. Let no one in the field go back to get their cloak. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that your flight will not take place in winter or on the Sabbath, for then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. And I'll reread Mark 13:14 through 19. When you see the abomination that causes desolation standing where it does not belong, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetop go down or enter the house to take anything out. Let no one in the field go back to get their cloak. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that this will not take place in winter, because those will be days of distress unequaled from the beginning, when God created the world, until now, and never to be equaled again. And now let's add Luke's version from Luke 21:20 through 24. When you see Jerusalem being surrounded by armies, you will know that its desolation is near. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let those in the city get out, and let those in the country not enter the city. For this is the time of punishment in fulfillment of all that has been written. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. There will be great distress in the land and wrath against this people. They will fall by the sword and will be taken as prisoners to all the nations. Jerusalem will be trampled on by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Some scholars believe that Jesus was speaking about the AD 70 invasion in these verses. Remember that end times began when Jesus ascended back to heaven, or approximately AD 30. So he's telling them about the very beginning of the end times. Others believe that these things will happen closer to the end of the end times. I don't know. Maybe it will be both. I don't know. I'll reread Matthew 24:22 through 29. If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. At that time, if anyone says to you, "Look, here is the Messiah," or "There he is," do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you ahead of time. So if anyone tells you, "There he is, out in the wilderness," do not go out. Or "Here he is, in the inner rooms," do not believe it. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever there is a carcass, there the vultures will gather. Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. And I'll reread Mark 13:20 through 25. If the Lord had not cut short those days, no one would survive. But for the sake of the elect whom he has chosen, he has shortened them. At that time, if anyone says to you, "Look, here is the Messiah," or "Look, there he is," do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. So be on your guard. I have told you everything ahead of time. But in those days following that distress, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. Now we'll add Luke's version in Luke 21:25 and 26. There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea. People will faint from terror, apprehensive of what is coming on the world, for the heavenly bodies will be shaken. Here Jesus lists the final signs at the very end of the end times, right before Jesus returns. These are the signs that we should be watching for and learn to recognize. Look again at Matthew 24:28. Wherever there is a carcass, there the vultures will gather. Do you remember that on day 205, when Jesus told the Pharisees that if they were good at reading the signs of nature, they ought to be able to read the spiritual signs and figure out that he was the Messiah? I believe that Jesus concludes his list of signs by reminding them and us that these signs will be as obvious as the signs in nature. But there is a distinct possibility that these words were intended to be taken two ways. It is entirely possible that Jesus was calling the Pharisees vultures who were crowding around him, waiting for him to die. And then Jesus tells us that he will return after these signs. I'll reread Matthew 24:30 and 31. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. Where will we see Jesus first if we are still on earth? He will be in the clouds. Now, I don't know how both the northern and southern hemispheres of the whole world will be able to see him at the same time. But since God is the creator of all things, I trust that he can make it happen. Most people, those who are empty, will mourn when they see him. But we who are followers of Jesus, because we have invited him into our empty, God-shaped vacuum, will hear a trumpet call to announce King Jesus' arrival. Then we are told that the angels will gather his elect from all over the world. The definition of elect is the chosen ones, or those designated or singled out. We've discussed before that God is not playing favorites or choosing some people and rejecting others. It's the other way around. Those who choose to invite him in to their core are the elect. I cannot find support for God doing the choosing without throwing away an awful lot of Scripture. I believe that the Bible overwhelmingly teaches that all are welcome to invite Jesus into their God-shaped vacuum. Once you invite Jesus in, you immediately become part of the elect, the chosen ones. If we are still alive when Jesus returns, we'll be gathered up to heaven by the angels. Let me read 1 Thessalonians 4:17. After that, we who are still alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so we will be with the Lord forever. Super wow. In His service, Dale.